Walking into the Shenli temple, all the students remained quiet, without any noise or communication with each other. There is only 1 hour of time, and everyone cherishes it very much, and does not want to waste every second. On the walls of the first floor of the shrine, there are 12 gold leaf diagrams, which are hung in 12 directions. Xueling, Yu Qi Tiankong, Hualien, and Zhu Hailan entered the Divine Power Temple, and they each chose a gold leaf map, sat down at the bottom of the picture scroll, and began to cultivate. They are all old students, they have entered the Divine Power Hall more than once, and they are already familiar with the road, and they know the cultivation rules in the Divine Power Hall very well. 12 Demi-Holy Intents. Zhang Ruogan looked at the 12 gold leaf pictures hanging on the wall, was slightly surprised, and secretly said in his heart, the Wuxi School Palace is also too wealthy, it is just an outer courtyard, and he actually took out 12 half-saint intentions at one time for the students to understand. Zhang Ruogan took a closer look and found something wrong. The 12 demi-saint intentions do not seem to be genuine, but rubbings. That's right, rubbing. Each demi-saint intent represents the martial arts of a demi-saint and the spiritual will of a demi-saint. By visualizing the demi-saint intentions, the students will be able to temper their spiritual power through the spiritual will of the demi-saint, so that the spiritual power will become stronger and stronger. Of course, students also have the opportunity to comprehend the martial arts of the demi-saints, and even comprehend some special demi-saint masteries. The 12 demi-holy intentions hanging on the wall are not genuine works, but rubbings. It can only simulate the spiritual will of the demi-saint, not the martial arts of the demi-saint. The formation in the Divine Power Hall can inject the spiritual energy into the rubbing scroll, so that the rubbing scroll produces the spiritual will of the half-saint, which is used to temper the spiritual power of the students. When the Temple of Divine Power is opened for an hour, it takes 5,000 spirit crystals to maintain the half-saint spiritual will of the rubbing scroll. 5,000 spirit crystals are 5 million silver coins. Because of the huge consumption, the Temple of Divine Power will only be opened once per month. Ziyiqian chose one of the 12 demi-saint holy intentions, sat down under the demi-saint holy intentions, and began to contemplate. In the lower left corner of that painting was engraved a line of small letters: Blood Disciple Demi-Saint Holy Intent. On the wall next to the scroll, there is an introduction to the life of the Blood Disciple Demi-Saint, and at the same time, it clearly tells the students who enter the Divine Power Hall that the Blood Disciple Demi-Saint's intention is suitable for female warriors, and for martial artists who pursue speed and killing. Ziyiqian's pursuit is speed and killing, and it is estimated that she saw that passage, so she chose to temper her spiritual power with the Blood Disciple Demi-Saint Holy Intent. Prince Huoxing and Yao Qingtong also chose a semi-saint intent respectively. Luo Shuyan, Tuo Muzi, Huang Yanchen, and Duan Jupiter Spirit walked towards the second floor of the Divine Power Temple, and on the stairs, Duan Muxing Spirit gave Zhang Ruogan a look, as if signaling him to follow. Zhang Ruogan understood and followed. Duan Mu Xingling said in a low voice, the students below the 20th level of spiritual power are all cultivating at the first level. Cultivators above the 20th rank have to go to the second level to cultivate. Is it also a demi-saint intent? Zhang Ruogan said. Duan Muxing Spirit said, the demi-saint intentions in the Divine Power Hall in the West Courtyard are all rubbing scrolls, not genuine works. The strength of the half-saint spiritual will in the holy intent is directly proportional to the spiritual qi infused with the holy intent. They are also rubbings of the demi-saint intent, and the 12 half-saint intents on the first layer can only allow the student's spiritual power to reach the 20th level. However, the 6 half-saint intents of the second layer could allow the spiritual power of the students to reach the 30th order. It is said that on the third floor of the Divine Power Temple, there is still a rubbing scroll of the holy intent of the sage, but only Luo Shuyan can go to the third floor of the Divine Power Temple. Zhang Ruogan nodded and didn't ask any more. Coming to the second floor of the Divine Power Temple, Tuo Muzi sat down under the 9 true half-saint intent and began to cultivate against time. Yellow smoke and dust cultivated below the heavenly wind half-saint's intent, Duan Jupiter spirit disk sat under the ice river half-saint intent to cultivate. Zhang Ruogan also chose a half-saint holy intention, with 10 stars drawn on the picture, arranged in a line, just like 10 stars in a row. It was a very ordinary scroll. If it wasn't placed in the Divine Power Temple, it wouldn't be obvious that it was a half-saint intent. Half-saints know 10,000 swords, leave true intent. In the lower left corner of the scroll, 10 small characters are engraved. Every word is full of power, as if it were written with an iron sword. Zhang Ruogan sat cross-legged below the half-saint's intent, calming down, his eyes staring towards the scroll. About a minute later, a roar sounded in Zhang Ruogan's mind, and his eyes went dark. When Zhang Ruogan regained his vision again, he found himself on a pitch-black earth. The air was cold, the ground was overgrown with weeds, and there were 10 stars suspended above his head. The 10 stars were lined up in a row, exactly the same as the arrangement on the half-saint intention. This is the world in the painting of the demi-saint's intentions. Zhang Ruogan's face showed a hint of a smile, without a trace of panic, because he had also entered the holy intent to cultivate spiritual power before, so it was very clear that he did not really enter the holy intent, but only the spiritual power entered the holy intent. Boom! The 10 stars suspended in the sky emitted a dazzling brilliance, turning into 10 pillars of light, and at the same time falling from above, shining on Zhang Ruogan's body. Each pillar of light fell on Zhang Ruogan's body, and Zhang Ruogan felt that the weight on his shoulders had doubled. When the 10 pillars of light fell at the same time, it was like 10 mountains pressing on the top of the head. What a strong mental will! Zhang Ruogan's legs stepped on the ground, his center of gravity sank, and he stood on the horse to bear the weight of his body. Both of his feet were already in the ground, which showed how heavy the force was on him. Just as he was stabilizing his body, a man in white with a sword on his back descended from the sky and slashed at him with his sword. Whew! The sword swung out, condensing thousands of sword shadows. The sword shadows converged to form a white lightsaber that stabbed at Zhang Ruogan's heart. Break! Zhang Ruogan mobilized his spiritual power, condensed a sword in his hand, and stabbed it out, shattering the white lightsaber and turning it into wisps of white smoke. The man in white smiled knowingly and said, "Under the pressure of the tenfold star power, you can still use your sword to break my attack. Your spiritual power has reached at least the 30th level, and this rubbing scroll can't help you anymore. You get out." Wow! A flash of white light. Zhang Ruogan's spiritual power withdrew from the scroll. "Your spiritual power has reached the 30th order." A very pleasant woman's voice came from behind him. Zhang Ruogan was slightly startled, looked in the direction behind him, and saw a woman in white standing 3 steps away from him. Her figure was tall, her eyebrows were pretty, and she stood behind Zhang Ruogan Zhou Ran, staring at the 10-star half-saint true intent with a pair of starry eyes, and she didn't know what she was thinking. "I've seen senior sister Luo." Zhang Ruogan stood up. Luo Shuyan stared at Zhang Ruogan's eyes and said, "When you tested your spiritual power for the second time, I knew that you still hadn't exerted your full strength. I'm really curious, how many levels of your spiritual power have reached?" Zhang Ruogan smiled, "I still can't hide it from senior sister Luo. Follow me to the 3rd floor of the Divine Power Temple." Luo Shuyan's voice was flat, and he walked towards the 3rd floor of the Divine Power Palace. Her back is flawless, the green silk is shaking, and the faint fragrance seems to be able to stay in the air forever, which is intoxicating. Zhang Ruogan followed, walked on the ladder, and asked, "Senior sister Luo, it is said that only you can climb the 3rd floor, and no outsiders are allowed to climb it." Luo Shuihan said, "Do you know why?" "Why?" Zhang Ruogan said. Luo Shuihan said, "Because on the 3rd floor of the Divine Power Hall, there is a true painting of the half-saint holy intent, and that authentic painting was brought to the west courtyard by me from the Luo family." Zhang Ruogan stopped, behaved very calmly, and said, "Since the true painting of the intention of the half-saint was brought out by senior sister Luo from the family, it is senior sister Luo's personal treasure, I still don't want to go." Luo Shuyan turned around, stared at Zhang Ruogan's eyes, and said, "Zhang Ruogan, you have to understand one thing, since it is my personal treasure, I can naturally invite you to cultivate together. Because, in the entire western courtyard, only you have that qualification. Senior sister Luo has a broad heart, and senior brother admires it. Zhang Ruogan said. Luo Shuyan and Zhang Ruogan came to the third floor of the Divine Power Temple, and at a glance, they saw the demi-saint intent hanging in the center of the wall. It's still a gold leaf picture, but it's fundamentally different from those rubbings. Even if you just stand next to the scroll, you can feel a huge pressure emanating from the scroll, making it difficult to breathe. Zhang Ruogan walked to the bottom of the half-saint's intention, looked up, and saw that the scroll was depicting water flows, small streams connecting small rivers connecting big rivers connecting rivers, and rivers flowing into the sea. The number of streams on the scroll is at least 1,000. There must be hundreds of small rivers, dozens of large rivers, and 9 rivers. Eventually, 9 rivers converge into the sea. This is the ancestor Luo Su. When he was in the realm of a demi-saint, he left behind the intent of a demi-saint. It is said that the picture contains not only the spiritual will of the ancestors, but also a powerful martial arts. It's a pity that in the past 200 years, the Luo family has produced many geniuses, but none of them have been able to comprehend that kind of martial arts. Luo Shuyan said with some regret. It turned out to be the demi-saint intent of Luo Su's predecessor. Zhang Ruogan admired Luo Su very much, and bowed slightly to the half-saint holy intent. Luo Shuyan saw Zhang Ruogan's movements, his eyes lit up slightly, and he nodded lightly, admiring Zhang Ruogan a little more. Not only is he extremely talented, but he is not arrogant, and in the future, it will not be a thing in the pool. Luo Shuihan said, there are a total of 1,894 streams, 325 small rivers, 64 large rivers, 9 rivers, and a sea on this half-saint intent. Streams, rivers, and the sea correspond to the 5-fold realm of spiritual power. How far can you go? Zhang Ruogan nodded, sat down under the picture scroll, and completely released his spiritual power. At the same time, Luo Shuyan gently rolled up the white robe, sat cross-legged beside Zhang Ruogan, and also mobilized his spiritual power, staring at the demi-saint holy intent. Wow! Wow! A moment later, the spiritual power of the two entered the world of the demi-saint's intent at the same time, and came to a country where water was shuttling. Luo Shuyan was like a white fairy butterfly, barefoot, revealing 2 snow-white and crystal legs, treading water, and walked to the middle of a stream, just like a Lingbo fairy. She turned to stare at Zhang Ruogan, who was standing on the shore. Her voice was soft and beautiful, like a heavenly sound, like a piano, and said, there are thousands of paths for cultivation. But eventually the path will merge into the avenue, and the avenue will lead in the same direction. There are 3,000 avenues, and different paths lead to the same end. Zhang Ruogan said. Zhang Ruogan walked to the bank of the stream, slowly closed his eyes, raised one foot, stepped on the water, and the solace of his feet sank slightly, but in the end he still did not fall into the water. Then, standing on the surface of the water with both feet, as if walking on flat ground, he walked towards Luo Shuyan. Luo Shuyan nodded lightly, went down the river, and walked forward. Zhang Ruogan quickened his pace, walked to Luo Shuyan's left side, walked side by side with her, closed his eyes, and only felt indescribably calm and comfortable. Zhang Ruogan, your talent is really high, stronger than any genius I've ever seen. Can you tell me, how did you cultivate your spiritual power to your current height? Luo Shuyan closed his eyes and walked forward with instinct. I'm sorry, I can't tell anyone some secrets. Zhang Ruogan said. Luo Shuyan didn't ask any more, and said, do you know what spiritual power is? Zhang Ruogan said, spiritual power comes from the brain spiritual platform. The human brain is full of infinite potential. Ordinary people can only use 10% of their brains, so their mental power is only 10 levels. Cultivating spiritual power can open up the treasure house of the brain and present endless possibilities. It is said that if an ordinary person who has not cultivated martial arts can make the utilization of his brain reach 50%, that is, his spiritual power will reach 50 ranks. Then he will be able to break through the limits of human beings through his spiritual power and become a saint. The spiritual power saint is even more terrifying than the martial Deo saint. Some of them can summon thunder and lightning, some can cast clouds and rain, some can awaken dead bodies that have been sleeping for thousands of years, some can communicate with the gods, and some can predict the future. Luo Shuyan nodded and said, "The spiritual power sage is indeed more powerful and weirder than the martial Deo sage, but it is 100 times more difficult to become a spiritual power sage than to become a martial Deo sage. The further the cultivation of spiritual power goes, the more difficult it will increase exponentially, and it will be difficult to ascend to the sky every time you ascend to the next level. Just like Elder Yu Jingchan, he has cultivated his spiritual power for 80 years, and he has cultivated his spiritual power to the 39th order. If there was no special opportunity, if he wanted to cultivate his spiritual power to the 40th order, it would take at least 40 years. But will he live 40 years? At this moment, they walked through the creek and entered a small river. On the surface of the small river, continue to walk forward towards the big river. The water in the small river became more turbulent, and the wind blew on the water, blocking Luo Shuyan and Zhang Ruogan's steps from walking forward. It didn't take long for them to enter a large river. The water in the river became more turbulent, and the wind on the surface of the water became more violent, as if it were about to blow them away. After walking half the distance on the big river, Zhang Ruogan's voice came from Luo Shuyan's ears. She said, "This is my limit, I can't go any further." Zhang Ruogan stopped and looked at Luo Shuyan beside him, but at some point, Luo Shuyan's entire body sank into the water, leaving only a world-shattering face still exposed on the water. If she continued to walk, she would be completely drowned. Luo Shuihan said, "I'm cultivating here, as long as my spiritual power increases, I can float out of the water and have the ability to continue walking. Take care." After Zhang Ruogan said 2 words, he continued to walk forward. Out of this big river, Zhang Ruogan entered a broader river. As long as he follows this river, he can enter the sea. From creeks to small rivers, from small rivers to big rivers, from big rivers to rivers, from rivers to the sea, people's horizons are becoming broader and broader, and the spiritual power they need is getting stronger and stronger. As soon as he stepped into the river, Zhang Ruogan's feet sank slightly, and the water in the river could already submerge his instep. After 3,000 meters of progress, the water was up to his knees. After walking for 2,000 meters, the water reached his waist. After another 2,000 meters, the water flooded his chest. With difficult steps, Zhang Ruogan continued to walk forward. Every step was very difficult, and only by using all his strength could he move forward. The water in the rivers is constantly tempering his spiritual power. When the water in the river flooded his neck, Zhang Ruogan had to stop and try to compete with the current, so that he could keep breathing and not be drowned by the river. As time passed little by little, Zhang Ruogan's body gradually floated up from the water, and the level was at the level of his waist. Luo Shuyan's voice came from the shore, and said, "Zhang Ruogan, the time of an hour has come." Zhang Ruogan woke up from the intoxication of the growth of his mental power, looked at Luo Shuyan on the shore, and said, "So fast." Luo Shuihan said, "If you want to follow the path of a spiritual power sage, I can lend you this half-saint intent to help you. Of course, if that's the case, you'll have to give up martial arts. If you want to continue cultivating martial arts, now, you must leave the half-saint intent." Of course, Zhang Ruogan understood what Luo Shuyan meant. A martial artist can also cultivate spiritual power, but he can't indulge too much in cultivating spiritual power, which is the way of martial arts. The influence is quite large, and it is a taboo for martial artists. Zhang Ruogan naturally couldn't give up martial arts, so he walked towards the shore. At this moment, Zhang Ruogan saw a faint figure on the river in the distance. The figure stood in the middle of the water, as if practicing a profound fist technique. The figure just disappeared in a flash, and when Zhang Ruogan looked again, the figure had disappeared. What are you looking at? Luo Shuyan asked. I really want to see a figure that looks very similar to Luo Su's predecessors. Ning Xiao Chuan wrote. Luo Shuyan's heart moved, and a strange brilliance appeared in his beautiful eyes, and he immediately asked, what is that figure doing? Zhang Ruogan shook his head lightly and said, that figure has disappeared, maybe I'm dazzled. Luo Shuyan's eyes showed a little disappointment, and he said, maybe you didn't look dazzled at all, it was probably really the phantom left by the ancestor, who was practicing his martial arts. Perhaps. Zhang Ruogan seemed indifferent, walked out of the water, and landed on the shore. Luo Shuyan's eyes stared at Zhang Ruogan with some complicated eyes, and said, do you know how many levels of your spiritual power have reached? Zhang Ruogan smiled, I don't know. 34th. Luo Shui said coldly. Zhang Ruogan was not surprised, the resonance of the gods last time had increased his spiritual power by a large margin, and it was not a strange thing to reach the 34th order. Luo Shuyan said again, do you know how much spiritual power the ancestor had when he reached the half-saint? At that time, the spiritual power of the ancestors was only 38 ranks. It wasn't until the ancestor became a sage that his spiritual power broke through the 40th order. Zhang Ruogan, you are only in the late stage of the Suanji realm now, and your spiritual power has reached the 34th order, and in the entire history of the Kunlun realm, it is estimated that you can also rank in the top 10. If you give up martial arts from now on and specialize in spiritual power, you will have at least a 50% chance of becoming a spiritual power saint. Zhang Ruogan naturally understood what Luo Shuyan meant, his eyes were very firm, and he said, it's impossible for me to give up martial arts. All right. The road is under your feet, how you choose, it's all in your heart. Luo Shuyan then said, your spiritual power is high, I will keep it secret for you, and I won't tell anyone. Thank you. Zhang Ruogan said. Luo Shuyan and Zhang Ruogan withdrew from the half-saint holy intention and walked towards the outside of the Divine Power Palace. Seeing Luo Shuyan and Zhang Ruogan walking out of the Divine Power Hall together, those students who were already waiting outside the hall all showed envy and jealousy. In particular, Yu Qi Tiankong and Prince Huoxing were so jealous that they stared at Zhang Ruogan deadly, as if they wanted to kill Zhang Ruogan with their eyes. The door of the Divine Power Temple closed again, and the 12 students left separately. Back at Suanzi No. 1, Zhang Ruogan was planning to enter the space-time spar to practice swordsmanship, preparing for the quarterly assessment in 2 months. With a bang, the door of the room was opened with a palm, and Duan Jupiter rushed in from the outside, with a strange smile on her pretty face, and said, Zhang Ruogan, senior sister Luo has taken you to the 3rd floor of the Divine Power Temple. Zhang Ruogan smiled, that's right. What's on the 3rd floor of the Divine Power Temple? Duan Jupiter Ling asked. I can't say. Zhang Ruogan said. Duan Mu Xingling's eyes widened, and he made a puffing appearance, and said, if you don't say it. Forget it, I originally wanted to tell you about the quarterly assessment in 2 months. If you don't say it, then I won't say it either. Zhang Ruogan smiled bitterly and said, Senior sister Duan Mu, this matter really can't be said. Duan Mu Xingling stared at Zhang Ruogan fiercely, and suddenly, a brilliant smile appeared on his face, and said, it's okay if you don't say it, then you tell me, how did you cultivate your spiritual power to such a terrifying height? Zhang Ruogan pondered for a moment and said very seriously, talent. Duan Mu Xingling clenched his fists, and there was an urge to strangle Zhang Ruogan. Duan Mu Xingling calmed down his annoyance, and said angrily, 2 months later, it will be the quarterly assessment. The quarterly assessment is divided into 2 sessions, the first of which is a freshman competition jointly organized by the 4 outer courts. The second session is the internal ranking assessment of the West Hospital. Do you have faith? What faith? Zhang Ruogan said. Duan Jupiter said, you are the first freshman in the West Courtyard, so naturally you have to shoulder the responsibility of fighting for the honor of the West Courtyard. If you can lead the new students of the West Courtyard and defeat the other 3 courtyards, you will definitely be rewarded with a lot of merit points. Outside the door, there was a voice of yellow smoke and dust, and he said coldly, your talent is indeed the first among the freshmen in the West Academy, but your actual combat ability may not be the first. Not to mention, the other 3 major academies are full of masters and geniuses, and it is by no means easy for you to become the first freshman in the 4 academies. Zhang Ruoken and Duan Muxingling both showed surprised expressions, staring at the yellow smoke and dust that walked in from outside. Duan Muxingling asked, "Sister Chen, why are you here?" At this moment, Huang Yanshan's expression was very unhappy, and he said, "I went to Huangzi No. 1 to find Zhang Ruoken. He is not in Huangzi number 1, so I guessed that he should be here with you. Star Spirit, I really didn't expect you to really like this lewd/thief. Nope. Sister Chen, listen to my explanation. Duan Jupiter Lingdao. No need." Huang Yanshan stared at Zhang Ruoken, took out a small jade bottle, handed it over, and said, "Lewd/thief, this is a drop of half-saint true liquid, I want to exchange it for a space treasure with you." Zhang Ruoken stared at the small jade bottle, then at Huang Yanshan, frowned slightly, was quite dissatisfied with her attitude, shook his head, and said, "I'm sorry. The deputy courtyard master of King Hua has already promised to help me apply for 10 drops of half-saint true liquid, and I don't need half-saint true liquid now." In fact, Zhang Ruoken felt more guilty about Huang Yanshan, and even thought about giving her a space treasure. However, with Huang Yanshan's current attitude, it is impossible for Zhang Ruoken to give her the space treasure. Huang Yanshan's royal blue pupils dilated slightly, releasing a chill, and said, "Duan Muxing Spirit can exchange a drop of demi-saint true liquid for a spatial jade bracelet with you, but I can't, it seems that she is really close to you." "All right. In that case, you make a price." Duan Jupiterling was afraid that Huang Yanshan would misunderstand, so he kept glancing at Zhang Ruoken. Zhang Ruoken pretended not to see it, and said, 5 million silver coins, 1 less, it won't work." Hearing Zhang Ruoken's words, Huang Yanshan directly pulled out his sword, pointed the tip of the sword at Zhang Ruoken's neck, and said, "Say it again." Zhang Ruoken directly ignored the sword in front of him, stared at Huang Yanshan's eyes, and said lightly, 5 million silver coins, 1 less, it won't work. Huang Yanshan was originally hot-tempered, but when he heard Zhang Ruoken's words, his anger surged up, and he said, "I finally understand why Duan Jupiter Spirit would interfere in every way when I wanted to kill you. It turns out that the 2 of you have already colluded. In that case, why should I let you go? Today, I'm going to ask you to pay for what you did that night. From now on, you will be a eunuch." Huang Yanshan originally just wanted to go to Zhang Ruoken in exchange for a space treasure, and even had the intention of repairing the relationship with Zhang Ruoken. But when she found out that Zhang Ruoken actually lived with her best sister, she felt an inexplicable anger in her heart, and she had a feeling of being deceived. Wu! Huang Yanshan's 5 fingers turned, and the sword slashed down diagonally, pulling out a sword flower and slashing between Zhang Ruoken's legs. Zhang Ruoken only felt a chill in his lower body, and his heart was shocked, and he immediately retreated backwards, narrowly avoiding Huang Yanshan's sword just now. Huang Yanshan did not give up, condensed his sword qi again, and stabbed over. Bang! Duan Muxingling also followed with his sword, and with a wave of his backhand, he broke the sword move stabbed by Huang Yanshan, and said, "Sister Chen, you calm down first, and listen to our explanation." Seeing Duan Muxingling make a move, the anger in Huang Yanshan's heart became even stronger, and the sword move slashed out like a wind, forming a huge sword chi vortex. Duan Jupiter Spirit, why haven't we really decided the winner? Today, let's compete, who is stronger? The long hair on Huang Yanshan's head was flying, his robe was flying, his posture was graceful, and between the swings of his sword, he swept the Duan Jupiter Spirit into the sword chi vortex. Boom! The 2 powerful sword chi collided together, shattering the roof of the house into a huge hole, and the glazed tiles continued to roll down. The 2 of them rushed out of the hole, flying off the wall, their sword aura like a rainbow, and trampling the tiles with a bang sound. The sound of the battle gradually faded away. Zhang Ruoken looked at the mess inside the house, and was very speechless. Senior sister Huang is really a saboteur. As long as there is a place for her, she can always tear down the house, and it seems that she has to change to a new place to live. Suddenly, Zhang Ruoken felt a strong murderous aura, and the hairs on his body stood up in an instant. Almost instinctively, Zhang Ruoken suddenly pounced forward and rolled around on the ground. Wu! A green poisoned arrow passed through the wall and flew dangerously past Zhang Ruoken's neck, scratching a bloody mark on the skin. After an instant, the skin, centered on the blood, immediately turned purple-black. Zhang Ruoken immediately took out a detoxification pill from the time crystal and took it into his mouth. That murderous aura still hasn't disappeared, just like a poisonous snake hidden in the shadows, it will shoot a second poison arrow and a third poison arrow at any time. Zhang Ruoken cultivated the Jade Pure True Qi, which originally had a purifying effect on many toxins. However, the toxins quenched on the green long arrow were very powerful, and taking the detoxification pill and running the Jade Pure True Qi could only suppress the spread of the poison. Is the killer of the Daifuman finally here? Zhang Ruoken lay on the ground, not daring to move, and quietly released the space domain. Under the detection of the space domain, Zhang Ruoken discovered the breath of two killers. One of the killers was hiding in this attic, only 7 meters away from Zhang Ruoken. The other killer was far away, hiding among the leaves of a giant iron pine tree 40 meters away, and if it weren't for Zhang Ruoken's spatial domain, it would be impossible to find her. It must have been the poisoned arrow she shot. One far and one near, two killers. Zhang Ruoken could perceive their martial arts cultivation, all of them were the great perfection of the Suanji realm, and their true qi was very strong, and any one of them had the ability to kill Zhang Ruoken. Just after finishing my cultivation in the Divine Power Temple, the killer came to the door. How could it be so coincidental? Could it be that among the 12 genius students who entered the Divine Power Hall to cultivate, besides Ziyi Qian, there were other killers from the Daifu Gate? Zhang Ruoken's mind turned rapidly, he felt very critical, and felt that something was quite wrong. I hid in Suanzi number 1 just to borrow the power of senior sister Duanmu to help me deal with these killers. Huang Yanchen suddenly appeared, luring senior sister Duanmu go, and then, the killer appears. How could such a coincidence occur? Could it be that Huang Yanchen is also the killer of the Daifu Gate? Zhang Ruoken held his breath, used the power of the space domain to cover the breath on his body, and made a plan in his heart. His biggest advantage now is that he can find the location of two killers, but those two killers can't find his location. In this case, then deal with the killer who is close first, and then deal with the killer who is far away as quickly as possible. However, the two killers are both cultivators of the great perfection of the Suanji realm, much stronger than Zhang Ruoken, and it is extremely difficult to kill one of them, so how can they kill two of them? At this moment, Zhang Ruoken sensed Xiao He in the space realm. Xiao He went to steal 2 more books, sandwiched them under the cat's paws, walked on his 2 hind legs, held his head high, and walked in through the gate, unaware that there were 2 powerful killers hiding in Suanzi number 1. Zhang Ruoken summoned the Qinkan Divine Wood diagram from the Qi Lake, pinched it in his hand, injected the true Qi into the Qinkan Divine Wood diagram, and used the Qinkan Divine Wood diagram to transmit information to Xiao He. What is Zhang Ruoken doing? Do you want to seal me back to the Qinkan Divine Wood diagram? Xiao He felt the power of the seal coming from the Qinkan Divine Wood diagram, as if he wanted to pull it into the diagram. At this moment, Zhang Ruoken's voice reached Xiao He's ears through the power of the Qinkan Divine Wood diagram. After hearing Zhang Ruoken's message, Xiao He's 2 cat ears stood up, and a pair of round eyes widened, looking in the 2 directions that Zhang Ruoken said. They are indeed killers, and their concealment methods are indeed powerful, and if you don't probe carefully, you won't be able to find their traces at all. Today, the Emperor is here to have a good time with you. Xiao He smiled and swooped into the grass. With Xiao He's help, Zhang Ruoken's confidence has increased greatly. Thunder and lightning. Zhang Ruoken's martial soul is not only a martial soul of time and space, but also has the attribute of thunder and lightning. Under the urging of his true qi, he mobilized the aura within a radius of 50 meters and condensed into wisps of electric light. Tiny electric lights converge and entangle with each other, becoming thicker and thicker. Smack! A bolt of thunder and lightning swept through the void and slashed at the body of the killer who was hiding 7 meters away from Zhang Ruoken. Poof! That killer was caught off guard, and was struck by lightning and smoked, suffered a heavy blow, and coughed up a mouthful of blood from his mouth. Where does the thunder and lightning come from? The killer's heart was so frightened that he immediately retreated. Bang! Zhang Ruoken carried the soul-flashing sword, smashed through the wall, shot as fast as he could, and stabbed the killer's eyebrows with a sword. The killer in black, hearing the sound of breaking wind, kept retreating, and his speed was 1 point faster than Zhang Ruoken, dodging Zhang Ruoken's killing sword. Woo! Zhang Ruoken's arm waved, slashed over the side of the killer's neck, stabbed it, and cut off a piece of black clothing. The killer touched his neck and found that his head was still on his neck, so he breathed a sigh of relief. It is worthy of being the first freshman, and there are 2 hits. Can you tell me what happened to the thunder and lightning just now? Zhang Ruoken knew that he was stalling for time and wanted to wait for the killer in the distance to shoot him, so he continued to draw his sword and said, "Go to hell and ask Lord Yama." Humph! Just a freshman in the late stage of the Suanji realm, and he still wants to kill the powerhouse of the great perfection of the Suanji realm? You're too arrogant. A cold light appeared in the killer's eyes, and from inside his sleeve, he drew an extremely thin sword. Fish intestine sword in the sleeve. Woo! The sword light flashed, and the sword chi stabbed at Zhang Ruoken's heart like a white rainbow. His speed reached 50 meters per second, which was incredibly fast, and almost instantly, he stabbed Zhang Ruoken's heart. Just when he thought that he would definitely be able to kill Zhang Ruoken, suddenly, the space in front of Zhang Ruoken was distorted. His sword actually stabbed and passed under Zhang Ruoken's armpit. How so? No. The killer was terrified. For 2 martial arts masters who are fighting, there can be no mistakes. The slightest mistake is a dead end. Poof! Zhang Ruoken stabbed into the ankles of the killer's legs and broke the hamstrings of his legs. Immediately afterwards, with a twist of his body, Zhang Ruoken came behind the killer, and put his 2 fingers together, pointing at the Tianxin vein in the backbone of the killer. Smack! The Tianxin vein was broken, and the cultivation was abolished. The black-clad killer fell to the ground with a bang. Zhang Ruoken didn't have time to check the appearance of the black-clothed killer, carried the soul-flashing sword, jumped down the attic, and rushed towards the other killer 40 meters away step by step. The killer was hiding among the leaves of an iron pine giant tree, and she was shocked to see Zhang Ruoken rushing towards her with his sword. How did he find out where I was hiding? The female killer pulled out 2 green poisoned arrows from her back, and at the same time put them on the bowstring, pulling the black longbow into a full moon. She was very confident in her archery skills, and within a distance of 40 meters, even a martial artist of the great perfection of the Suanji realm would not be able to dodge her arrows. Meow! Just then, she heard a cat meow behind her. A black shadow flashed quickly in front of her eyes. The black shadow, with a sharp claw, swung it at her wrist. Poof! The female killer's right hand was cut off by a claw and fell from a tree. From her wrists, crimson blood gushed out, staining her black robe red. A sharp pain came from his wrist, causing the female killer to let out a muffled sound. Boom! Below, Zhang Ruoken swung his sword and slashed, and the trunk of the iron pine giant tree was cut off and fell down with a bang. The female killer fell from a tree more than 20 meters high, fell heavily to the ground, and just wanted to escape, but found a sword with a cold light pointed above her head. Do you still want to escape? Zhang Ruoken used his sword to remove the veil from the face of the female killer, revealing a rather beautiful face. Is that you? Zhang Ruoken was slightly surprised. That female killer was the first freshman in the West Courtyard 6 years ago, Hualien. Hualien clenched her teeth, showed a sneer, glanced at Xiao He not far away, very unwilling, and said, I didn't expect you to raise a powerful brute beast, we miscalculated. Who is the brute? When this emperor was mighty, your ancestors had not yet been born. Xiao He said very unhappily. Zhang Ruokan said, tell me, who else in the west courtyard are the killers of the Daifo Gate? Zhang Ruokan, you underestimate me too much. A strange smile appeared on Hualien's face. Boom! Under Hualien's feet, a blood array with a diameter of 5 meters was formed, emitting a dazzling blood light, shaking Zhang Ruokan and Xiao He out at the same time. Die! Hualien pulled out a thin sword from her sleeve, and stabbed at Zhang Ruokan's eyebrows with a lightning speed. It's too fast. Zhang Ruokan could barely see her moves. Oh no, underestimate the enemy. Hualien is the first freshman 6 years ago, and her cultivation must be very profound. Even if she is not a Xianbang martial artist, it is estimated that she will not be much weaker than a Xianbang martial artist. Zhang Ruokan hurriedly activated the true qi in his body, preparing to exert the power of space distortion again. Poof! A sound of a sword piercing into flesh sounded. Hualien's footsteps stopped suddenly, her eyes stared at Zhang Ruokan in front of her in a daze, she trembled, and fell straight to the ground. Huang Yanchen stood behind Hualien, withdrew his bloody sword, and snorted coldly, the killers of the Daifo Gate are becoming more and more rampant, and they dare to go to the Dragon Martial Palace to kill people. Zhang Ruokan looked at Hualien on the ground. Huang Yanchen's sword just now was very accurate, piercing Hualien's heart from behind. Zhang Ruokan stared at Huang Yanchen and said, why did you kill her? Huang Yanchen's eyebrows frowned slightly, and he said very unhappily, if I don't kill her, and now the one who dies is already you. Can you dodge her sword? Zhang Ruokan said, you can completely break her heavenly heart vein just now and abolish her cultivation, why do you have to kill her? Keep her mouth alive, and maybe you can get something out of her mouth. Huang Yanchen smiled, you are so naive, you actually want to ask something from the killer of the Daifo Gate. Wu. Huang Yanchen withdrew his sword, turned and left. Zhang Ruokan stared at Huang Yanchen's back, his eyes were very puzzled, is she the killer of the Daifo Gate? What are you thinking? Duan Mu Xingling stood beside Zhang Ruokan, followed Zhang Ruokan's gaze, stared at Huang Yanchen's beautiful back, and exclaimed, you don't suspect that Sister Chen is also the killer of the Daifo Gate, right? Zhang Ruokan shook his head lightly and said, I just think it's too coincidental. It's a coincidence. Duan Mu Xingling nodded and said, however, you don't have to doubt her, she definitely can't be the killer of the Daifo Gate. Why? Zhang Ruokan said. Duan Mu Xingling Dao, first of all, the killers of the Daifo Gate are mainly active in the 9 counties of Lingzi, and Sister Chen is not from the 9 counties of Lingzi. Secondly, killers kill, mainly for money. However, Sister Chen was not short of money at all, nor was she short of cultivation resources. Do you know that Sister Chen has another identity? Zhang Ruokan asked, what is your identity? She's one of the county lords of the Thousand Waters Commander. You've probably heard of Sensui Gun, right? Duan Jupiter Spiritual Dao. Zhang Ruokan nodded and said, I know. I really didn't expect her to have such a noble status. The king of Qian Shui County is a high-class county, which does not belong to the 9 counties of Lingzi, but it is very close to the 9 counties of Lingzi. The territory of the 9 counties of Lingzi combined, is less than a quarter of the territory of the Qian Shui County Kingdom. The eastern part of the Yunwu County is bordered by the Qian Shui County, and in a sense, the Yunwu County is even dependent on the Qian Shui County. Every year, Yunwu County will send a large number of tributes to Qian Shui County in order to get the protection of Qian Shui County, otherwise, the Sifang County state would have already annexed Yunwu County. Since Huang Yanchen is the county lord of Qian Shui County, then the possibility that she is the killer of the Daifo Gate is ruled out. Senior Sister Wang's temper is too short-tempered, and she doesn't look like a county lord at all. Zhang Ruokan shook his head. Sister Chen's personality is straight, she doesn't know how to disguise. If you have been in contact with her for a long time, you will find that she is actually a very good person. Duan Mu Xingling smiled. Zhang Ruogan returned to Suanzi No. 1 to inspect the killer who had been abolished by him. When Zhang Ruogan returned, he found that the killer had already been killed. He died with a slap shattering his heart. Zhang Ruogan's hand touched the heart of the killer and found that the killer's heart was shattered. Duan Mu Xingling also chased after him, saw the killer who had been killed, and said, "How can this be? We were in the middle of the courtyard, only 30 meters away from the attic, who could kill him without God knowing?" Zhang Ruogan's face was solemn, and he said, "The other party is at least a cultivator of the great perfection of the Earth Extreme Realm, and it may even be a martial arts myth of the Heavenly Extreme Realm." Duan Mu Xingling's face changed, and he said, "In the western courtyard, there is such a terrifying killer lurking, this matter must be reported to the courtyard master immediately." "No need. The big fish has been caught." The master of the west courtyard walked in from the outside with his hands behind his back, with a faint smile on his face. Zhang Ruogan asked, "Who is it?" The west courtyard master's gaze looked at the rockery in the distance and said, "Elder Situ, since you're already here, why do you have to hide? Is that necessary?" A man in black wearing a cloak walked out from behind the rockery and let out a hoarse laugh. "The courtyard master is really powerful. You deliberately used Zhang Ruogan to lure us out." The master of the west courtyard said, "It's a pity that I didn't lure everyone out, but if you take down your big fish, there is nothing to be afraid of other small shrimps." Now that he had been recognized, Elder Situ no longer hid his identity, and took off the cloak on his head, revealing a thin and old face, with two sharp lights in his deep sunken eyes, staring closely at the master of the west courtyard. "Courtyard master, the old man hasn't seen you make a move for 10 years, I don't know what state your cultivation has reached." Elder Situ took out 2 crimson spear barrels from his robe, urged the inscriptions, and put the spear barrels together to form an 8-foot-long blood-dripping spear. The gun, red as blood. The spear was waved like a waterfall of blood. True chi-like flames poured out from the palm of Elder Situ's hand, completely enveloping the spear. A blazing temperature emanated from the barrel of the gun, causing the temperature in the surrounding air to rise sharply. Just when everyone thought that Elder Situ was going to fight to the death with the master of the western courtyard, suddenly, Elder Situ's eyes lit up, staring at Zhang Ruogan, and the palm of his left hand slapped on the tail of the spear. Whew! The 8-foot-long blood-dripping spear, like a flaming arrow off the string, emitted a piercing sound of breaking wind, and flew towards Zhang Ruogan quickly. In the air, there was a crackling sound. At the same time, Elder Situ took a step sideways to the right, and with a tiptoe on the soles of his feet, his body flew up like a big bird, and in an instant, he flew dozens of meters away, jumped over the wall of the Dragon Martial Palace, and fled into the distance. He knew that he was definitely not the opponent of the master of the western courtyard, so he could only attack Zhang Ruogan. As long as the master of the west courtyard went to rescue Zhang Ruogan, he would have a chance to escape. Staring at the blood-dripping gun flying over, Zhang Ruogan quickly stepped back. Just as the flame spear flew in front of Zhang Ruogan, the master of the west courtyard grabbed the barrel of the spear, and with a wave of his arm, the spear flew out at a faster speed. Boom! The blood-dripping spear smashed through the walls of the Dragon Martial Hall and flew out like a fiery dragon. Outside, there was a scream. The walls of the Longwu Hall are 7 meters high and 1 meter thick, and are made of bricks and stones. At this moment, he was knocked out of a large hole with a diameter of 2 meters by the flame spear, and the thick wall was crumbling. Looking through the hole, Elder Situ was pierced through his body by a spear and fell in a pool of blood. Zhang Ruogan glanced at the master of the western courtyard, and secretly said in his heart, "Such a powerful martial arts cultivator, with a single move, he killed Elder Situ, and he didn't use his real strength at all." The master of the western courtyard looked at the purple-black poison mark on Zhang Ruogan's neck, took out a medicine bottle, and said, "You have been hit by the strange poison yellow spring water of the Daifu Gate, but fortunately it is only a trace amount of venom, and it is not fatal. There is a special antidote pill in the medicine bottle, you can take it now." Zhang Ruogan took out the detoxification pill in the medicine bottle and put it in his mouth, and the purple-black poison mark on his neck slowly dispersed, and soon disappeared completely. The master of the western courtyard stared at Zhang Ruoken, nodded with satisfaction, and said with a smile, I heard Yu Jingchan mention that your spiritual power has reached the 29th order, and you have become the #1 spiritual genius in the history of the Martial City Academy. Ha ha! Good boy, you have made the master of this academy fight for face. The next time you go to the inner palace of the Wuxi School Palace, the old man must show off more in front of those old guys. After a pause, the face of the courtyard master of the western courtyard became serious, and he said, there is one more thing, the old man must ask you carefully, do you want to take the path of a spiritual power sage? Zhang Ruoken didn't hesitate and said, no, I won't give up martial arts. The master of the western courtyard stared at Zhang Ruoken's eyes and said, Zhang Ruoken, do you know how talented you are in terms of spiritual power? Even in the entire history of the Kunlun Terran, it is estimated that it can be ranked in the top 10. With your talents, coupled with the vigorous cultivation of the Martial City Academy, you have at least a 50% chance of becoming a spiritual power sage. Zhang Ruoken said, the courtyard master doesn't need to persuade me anymore, it is absolutely impossible for me to give up martial arts. The master of the West Courtyard said, okay. In fact, your talent in martial arts is also extremely high, and your future achievements are definitely not low. The deputy courtyard master of King Hua promised to help you apply for 10 drops of the half-holy true liquid, and you should be able to apply for it within 3 days. In martial arts, if you have any doubts, you can always come and ask the old man. There are still 2 months left until the quarterly assessment, and you have to work hard to cultivate and strive to win the first place in the competition of the freshmen of the 4 academies and win glory for our Western Academy. Zhang Ruoken said, students must do their best. The master of the Western Courtyard stared at Elder Situ's corpse, thought for a moment, and said, Elder Situ is dead, but there must still be killers from other Daifu sects lurking in the Western Courtyard, and their cultivation should not be too strong. Duan Mu girl, in the next 2 months, it will be up to you to protect his safety. You're all right. Of course it's no problem, master, don't worry. Duan Mu Xingling smiled. The master of the West Courtyard nodded, and then he ordered someone to clean up the bodies of the 3 killers of the Daifu Gate and hang them on a 9-jong high blood wall in the West Courtyard. After the black market and lunatic cult lurkers are killed, they are all hung on the blood wall for 3 days to warn the other lurkers. That's senior sister Hualien, I didn't expect her to be the killer of the Daifu Gate, and she also instructed me in the cultivation skills of archery. Elder Situ has been in the West Courtyard for decades, and he is also an evil person in the black market. Fortunately he was killed by the courtyard master, otherwise I don't know how many genius students would be assassinated by him. The 3 killers were killed, causing a huge sensation in the West Courtyard, and many students came to watch the excitement under the blood wall. Ziyiqian stood in the crowd, staring at the 3 corpses on the blood wall, feeling an indescribable sadness in her heart. In the future, maybe she will be killed and hung on that wall of blood. If you choose to be a killer, you should be mentally prepared to be killed. Not only Ziyiqian, but also the other 2 students in the crowd also showed a different color in their eyes, and quietly retreated. Ryawu Temple. Duan Mu Xingling clasped his hands in front of his chest and said with a smile, the killer lurking in the West Courtyard of the Daifu Gate has suffered a heavy blow, even Elder Situ has been killed. It is estimated that no one will dare to assassinate you in a short period of time. Zhang Ruoken stared at the rubble on the ground and the collapsed walls, and said, Suanzi #1 has also become a ruin, and it is estimated that it will take a month to rebuild. Where will we live in the future? Duan Mu Xingling stopped, touched his chin, and said with a smile, let's go to Sister Chen's. You just had a big fight with her, and it's so stiff, and she'll let you live in no one. Zhang Ruoken said. Don't worry. Since Sister Chen and I have already fought a battle, then most of her anger should have disappeared. Let's go. Believe me, Sister Chen will definitely accept us. Duan Jupiter Spiritual Deo. Coming to the first number of the Earth word, the door is open, and the Jupiter Spiritan Zhang Ruoken walked straight in. Suddenly, Zhang Ruoken stopped. With a boom, a royal blue sword flew out of the window and flew past the tip of Zhang Ruogen's nose. Huang Yanchen walked out of the house, stood proudly above, stared at Duan Jupiterling and Zhang Ruogen, and said coldly, "What are you doing here at number 1? If you don't want to die, get out of here." Duan Muxingling smiled, flew over, hugged Huang Yanchen's arm, like a coquette, and said pitifully, "Now that the yellow character number 1 and the Suanzi number 1 have been destroyed, where do you let us go? Sister Chen, you see that we are so pitiful, just take us in. Come on. Please." Zhang Ruogen stood below and said calmly, "If senior sister Huang is still angry, then I will go to the 4th brother and live with him. Farewell." "Who's to say I'm still angry? When have I ever been angry?" The cold on Huang Yanchen's face melted, and he smiled with bright eyes. "Since you have come to join me, as a senior sister, how can I not take you in? Come in with me." Huang Yanchen's arm stretched forward, and his true qi spit out from his palm, turning into a twisted wind. Driven by that strong wind, the blue sword that was originally inserted in the stone wall beside Zhang Ruogen flew back into her hand with a bang. Telekinesis. Zhang Ruogen's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked at Huang Yanchen a few points higher. With the subtlety of her control of true qi, it shouldn't take long to reach the realm of the sword walking at will. From now on, the star spirit will live on the 2nd floor with me, and you will live in the lobby downstairs, and you will not be able to step on the 2nd floor without my permission. You don't have an opinion, do you?" Huang Yanchen stared at a pair of beautiful eyes, his eyelashes were slightly upturned, and he stared at Zhang Ruogen leisurely. The downstairs lobby is very spacious, not only a room, but also a study, a piano room, and a martial arts training hall. Outside the piano room, there is a bath, and there is a row of maple trees on the side of the bath, and the environment is very elegant. Zhang Ruogen said, "Okay. From now on, I will live in the martial arts hall, and I will never disturb the 2 senior sisters." After saying this, Zhang Ruogen took Xiao He and walked into the martial arts hall. The martial arts hall is very vast, 8 meters long and 6 meters wide, except for the entrance, there are stone walls on all sides. Moreover, the stone wall is also engraved with formation inscriptions, which are used to protect the stone wall and prevent it from being penetrated by sword qi. "Zhang Ruogen, I'm going to the study to read." After saying this, Xiao He swished and left the martial arts hall. For the next 3 days, Zhang Ruogen practiced the Tianxin sword technique in the martial arts hall during the day, and after nightfall, he entered the inner space of the space-time crystal, took pills, and cultivated true qi. He had a large number of pills on his body, all of which were collected from those candidates during the first round of the academy exam. There are not only elixirs that enhance true qi, but also pills that enhance strength, healing pills, detoxification pills, and pills that increase blood qi. There are more than 300 bottles in total. Zhang Ruogen made a rough calculation. So many pills were enough to support his cultivation to the great perfection of the Suanji realm. 3 days later, the deputy master of King Hua sent 10 drops of half-saint true liquid to Daiza number 1 and handed it to Zhang Ruogen. After getting 10 drops of half-saint true liquid, Zhang Ruogen couldn't wait to refine it. "Xiao He, help me protect the Dharma. If senior sister Huang and senior sister Duan Miu come to me, you can tell them that I am practicing in retreat." Zhang Ruogen greeted Xiao He, then entered the inner space of the space-time crystal, took out the first drop of the half-saint true liquid, took it directly into his mouth, and began to refine. In the space-time crystal, it took 8 days in a row. Zhang Ruogen refined 2 drops of half-saint true liquid, and successfully broke through to the small pole of the Suanji realm. Reaching the small pole, the capacity of Zhang Ruogen's gas lake expanded again. Every time the realm was broken, the Qi lake was expanded tenfold, but this time it broke through, and the Qi lake expanded nearly 12 times. Don't underestimate that it's just twice as much. A real martial arts master battle, even if it's just a little advantage, may be the key to victory. The Demi-Saint True Liquid is really a good thing. Not only can it improve my martial body, but it can also expand the Qi lake. Cultivation is a breakthrough. Zhang Ruogen is in a good mood. With the help of 10 drops of half-saint true liquid, Zhang Ruogan was sure that he would be able to raise his cultivation to the middle pole of the Suanji realm before the quarterly assessment. Refining the half-holy true liquid is only a secondary effect on the improvement of cultivation. The true preciousness of the demi-saint true liquid lies in its enhancement of the martial body. Under the tempering of the half-saint true liquid, Zhang Ruogan's physique became stronger, his meridians were broader, and his explosive power was more violent. When you reach the small pole of the Suanji realm, you can condense the beast with blood qi. I don't know what kind of blood beast phantom I've condensed. Zhang Ruogan walked out of the inner space of the space-time spar and came to the martial arts hall. Blood condensation beast. Zhang Ruogan stood in the center of the martial arts hall, and as the true qi moved in the veins, wisps of blood qi escaped from the pores, completely enveloping his body. The sound of the dragon and elephant singing together sounded in the blood. The phantom of a 7-meter-tall wild elephant appeared behind Zhang Ruogan, with elephant legs as thick as pillars, spear-like tusks, and a strong and powerful body. In addition, a dragon shadow with 7 claws was wrapped around the back of the brute elephant with teeth and claws, and the horns of the head were towering, and a pair of huge dragon eyes emitted purple thunder and lightning light. Although the elephant shadow and the dragon shadow were very faint, the aura emitted was extremely strong, as if he had returned to the ancient wilderness with Zhang Ruogan. It's actually a dragon elephant beast shadow, which seems to be a little more powerful than the thunder dragon beast shadow condensed in my previous life. Zhang Ruogan withdrew his blood qi into his body, and the dragon elephant phantom also disappeared. Test my current speed. The space of the Lianyu Hall was too small, and Zhang Ruogan came to the square of the Dragon Martial Hall to test the speed. Walking out of the number 1 character, standing in front of the gate, transporting the true qi in his body to his legs, with a bang, Zhang Ruogan rushed out like a gust of wind, leaving only a series of after-images. A moment later, Zhang Ruogan rushed to the other end of the square, stopped freely, with a happy look on his face, and said, without stimulating the power of the bloodline, I can already burst out at a speed of 50 meters per second. If the power of the bloodline is unleashed and the dragon elephant phantom is formed, I should be able to burst out at a speed of 52 meters per second. For ordinary martial artists, when they are at the small pole level of the Suanji realm, the speed is almost 36 meters per second, the mid-pole position can reach up to 40 meters per second, the great pole can reach 44 meters per second, Dzogchen can reach 48 meters per second. The students of the Martial City Academy, in the same realm, are stronger than ordinary martial artists. The students in the academy, when the Suanji realm was in the great perfection, the weakest students could burst out at a speed of 50 meters per second. Zhang Ruogan is now only at the small pole level of the Suanji realm, and the fastest speed can reach 52 meters per second, which can already compete with some of the great perfection students in the Western Academy. With my current strength, even if I go head-to-head with the great perfection martial artist of the Suanji realm, I am sure of winning. Zhang Ruogan clenched his fists, and he could clearly feel the improvement of his strength. The supreme extreme realm of the Xian extreme realm is that the speed reaches 81 meters per second. At my current level, when I reach the great perfection of the Suanji realm, I should be able to reach a speed of 70 meters per second, but it is absolutely impossible to reach 81 meters per second. 70 meters per second, faster than the speed of some Earth extreme realm martial artists, but Zhang Ruogan was unwilling. He really wants to reach the supreme extreme realm of the Xian extreme realm, and only by doing his best in every realm will he have a broader space for growth in the future. You must cultivate a high-grade speed-type martial art, and the chance of hitting the supreme extreme realm of the Xian extreme realm will be greater. Zhang Ruogan recalled in his mind, and soon selected a spirit-level speed-type martial art in his memory, called Wind-Flying Dragon Shadow. The Wind-Flying Dragon Shadow is already the lowest grade speed-type martial art in Zhang Ruogan's memory, which is just right for him to cultivate now. With his current cultivation, it would take about 2 to 3 months to successfully cultivate the martial arts of the lower grade of the spirit level. It would take about a year to successfully cultivate the mid-grade martial arts of the spirit level. It would take at least 5 years to fully cultivate a spirit-level martial art. This is because of his strong spiritual power, which is why the speed of cultivation is so fast. If it is changed to an ordinary Suanji realm small pole martial artist, it will take at least a year to completely cultivate the martial arts of the lower grade of the spirit level. If you want to successfully cultivate the martial arts of the middle grade of the spirit level, it will take at least 10 years. As for the spirit level martial arts, it will take at least 60 years to have a chance to succeed in cultivation. The higher the realm of martial arts, the faster the speed of cultivating martial arts. The stronger the spiritual power, the faster the speed of cultivating martial arts. Zhang Ruoken didn't think about cultivating the wind-flying dragon step to Dacheng in a short period of time, he just wanted to cultivate to Xiaocheng first. As long as he cultivates to a small level, Zhang Ruoken's body speed can be greatly improved, just like a flying dragon that resists the wind. The wind-flying dragon shadow has only 9 steps in total, and each step has 9 variations, for a total of 81 variations. When you're in a hurry, you only need to use the 9 steps of the wind. Cultivate to a small level, take 9 steps, and you can travel a mile. When fighting the enemy in close quarters, you need to use 81 step changes to make the enemy unguardable, and can only see your shadow, but not your body. Zhang Ruoken is also the first time to cultivate the wind-flying dragon shadow, so he can only keep groping. At first, he could only walk at the 9 simplest steps. After walking more than 10 times, Zhang Ruoken began to speed up his walking. The speed was getting faster and faster, Zhang Ruoken's legs seemed to have turned into phantoms, and more than a dozen legs appeared on the ground. In the distance, Huang Yanchen and Duan Muxingling stood in the attic, staring at Zhang Ruoken, who was cultivating in the square. He seems to be cultivating a profound body technique, at least all of them are spirit-level low-grade body martial arts. Duan Jupiter Spiritual Dao. Huang Yanchen's jade fingers gently supported his chin and said, "Body martial arts have always been very rare, and the body martial arts I am cultivating now are only human-level top grade. In the West Courtyard, there is a spirit-level low-grade body martial art, called King Kong Running Thunder Step, but unfortunately it is not suitable for women to cultivate. In the Thousand Water King Palace, there are 2 kinds of spirit-level lower-grade body martial arts, but unfortunately they all have some flaws and are not suitable for me to cultivate. It seems that I can only go to the inner palace to find a spiritual-level body martial art suitable for my cultivation." Duan Muxingling's eyes showed a strange brilliance, staring at Zhang Ruoken who was cultivating at a pace, and said, "Why don't you let the junior teach us? Spirit-level lower-grade body martial arts, no matter how precious, it will cost at least 2 million silver coins to buy. Even in the Martial City Academy, it costs 1,000 merit points to borrow it." Huang Yanchen said coldly, "Think he will teach us?" Duan Muxingling touched the space jade bracelet on his wrist and said with a smile, "Senior brother Zhang has never been a stingy person. He's just not stingy with you." Huang Yanchen said angrily. Duan Jupiter said, "We're going to have to give it a try, right? Besides, I found that the body martial arts he cultivated were quite special, and they did not have certain restrictions like other body martial arts, so they might be very suitable for our cultivation. Sister Chen, if you miss this opportunity, it will be difficult to find a suitable body technique in the future." "Okay." Huang Yanchen was also slightly moved. If Zhang Ruoken's cultivation of body martial arts was really suitable for her cultivation, she was even willing to spend a high price to buy it. Huang Yanchen and Duan Jupiter Ling are like 2 beautiful goddesses, with fluttering skirts and graceful postures, flying down from the attic and walking towards Zhang Ruoken. Seeing them coming, Zhang Ruoken stopped cultivating. "Senior brother, what advanced martial arts are you cultivating?" Duan Muxingling blinked his beautiful eyes and asked curiously. Zhang Ruoken said with a smile, "It's not a profound martial art, it's just a speed-type martial art. If you want to learn, I can teach you." Duan Muxingling and Huang Yanchen glanced at each other, they were still a little embarrassed, and they didn't know how to speak, but they didn't expect Zhang Ruoken to see their purpose first. Huang Yanchen had a cold face and said, I won't learn in vain. How many merit points or silver coins you want, I'll give them to you now. Zhang Ruogan stared at Huang Yanchen's stunning face, and said with a very leisurely smile, if I want to sell this kind of martial art, I'm afraid senior sister Huang can't afford it at all. Of course, Zhang Ruogan could see their purpose, and the reason why he planned to teach them for free was mainly because the last time Huang Yanchen used his sword to kill Hualien in time and saved him once. There is revenge, and it must be avenged. If you have grace, of course, you have to pay it back. Hearing Zhang Ruogan's words, Huang Yanchen's eyes turned cold, and he said, who do you say can't afford it? Today, I still have to buy it. Zhang Ruogan shook his head lightly and did not speak. A book of the worst spirit level high-grade martial arts can sell for 8 million silver coins outside. Not to mention that the Wind-Flying Dragon Shadow is a speed-type martial art, and it is also the top speed-type martial art in the spirit level, and outside, at least 30 million silver coins must be bought, or even higher. Even if Huang Yanchen was the county lord of Qianshui County, it was impossible to get 30 million silver coins. If she sells herself, maybe she can sell it at this price, at least the king of Qianshui will definitely buy her back. Zhang Ruogan, what is your expression? You dare to look down on me? Huang Yanchen stared at a pair of starry eyes, grinding his teeth, and looked at Zhang Ruogan very unpleasantly. I don't mean to look down on senior sister Huang, I'm telling the truth. If senior sister Huang wants to learn, it is best to be humble and not too arrogant. If senior sister Huang insists on buying this kind of speed-type martial art, then I will give senior sister Huang a cheaper, 10 million silver coins, no less. Zhang Ruogan said very seriously. A freshman actually dared to tell her not to be arrogant. As a female devil, how could Huang Yanchen endure it? Zhang Ruogan, do you dare to say it again? Believe it or not, I'm going to break your legs and throw you out. Huang Yanchen stretched out 5 snow onion jade fingers, wisps of true qi swirled between the jade fingers, and a small whirlwind condensed in the palm of her hand. Zhang Ruogan's expression was very calm, and he said lightly, I don't need senior sister Huang to make a move, I'll leave now. After saying this, Zhang Ruogan went to Daiza No. 1 to pack his things and prepare to move away, not wanting to stay in Longwu Hall anymore. Huang Yanchen is simply unreasonable, staying with her always gives Zhang Ruogan a very unsafe feeling, and his life is in danger at any time. If anyone marries her in the future, he will definitely be unlucky for 8 lifetimes. Senior brother, Sister Chen is just joking with you, don't take it seriously. Duan Mu Xingling chased after him, standing in front of Zhang Ruogan, squinting a pair of beautiful eyes, revealing a smiling face that was fascinated by death. Really? Zhang Ruogan glared at Huang Yanchen. Huang Yanchen stood straight in the distance, trying to control his anger, squeezed out a smile, and said, naturally, it's just a joke. All right then. For the sake of senior sister Duan Mu's face, I can teach you to cultivate the Wind-Flying Dragon Shadow, but whether you can succeed in cultivation depends on your talent. Zhang Ruogan wrote out the method of the Wind-Flying Dragon Shadow, handed it to Huang Yanchen and Duan Mu Xingling, and said, now, I can only tell you the cultivation method of the Wind-Flying Dragon Shadow first. As for footwork, with my martial arts cultivation, I can't draw the essence of steps at all, so I can only teach you while cultivating. Zhang Ruogan was telling the truth, although he used to be a powerhouse of the great perfection of the heavenly extreme realm, he could only draw the essence of the martial arts of the lower grade of the spirit level. The Wind-Flying Dragon Shadow is a spirit-level high-grade martial art, and with his understanding of martial arts, even if he barely draws his footwork, he only has 1 or 2 points of divine essence at most. According to that kind of footwork cultivation, it was impossible for Huang Yanchen and Duan Jupiter Spirit to successfully cultivate the Wind-Flying Dragon Shadow. Huang Yanchen and Duan Jupiter Ling took the recipe book and read it together. At first, they just looked very seriously, and the more they looked at the back, the more shocked they became. After reading the recipe booklet, Huang Yanchen's eyes were like 2 cold swords, staring at Zhang Ruogan tightly, and said, the recipes recorded above are very subtle, and it is absolutely impossible to be as simple as a spirit-level martial art. What kind of martial arts is the wind-flying dragon shadow? No comment. Zhang Ruoken said, if you want to learn, I will naturally teach you with all my heart. If you don't learn, go back. Learn. Why not learn? I must learn. Duan Jupiter Spirit could naturally see the power of the wind-flying dragon shadow. Even if he only cultivated to a small level, his combat power would definitely increase a lot. Huang Yanshan's eyes were cloudy, and he said, Star Spirit, have you memorized the magic technique? Of course, I remember them all. Sister Chen, have you forgotten that as long as your spiritual power reaches the 20th level, you will never forget it? Duan Mu Xingling smiled. Huang Yanshan nodded, and with a stab, the magic book was crushed into powder by Huang Yanshan. She is very aware of the value of the wind-flying dragon shadow, and if it is seen by outsiders, it will definitely bring endless trouble to them. In the following time, Zhang Ruoken demonstrated to them the 9 footsteps of the wind-flying dragon shadow, and then explained to them the 81 variables of the 9 steps. Huang Yanshan and Duan Jupiter Spirit are both supreme geniuses, with extremely high comprehension. They can draw inferences from one another, and they quickly grasp the basic essentials and begin to cultivate. Zhang Ruoken also cultivated with him, and his cultivation progress was obviously faster than theirs. After dark, Zhang Ruoken returned to the martial arts training ground at number 1 Daizhi, and Huang Yanshan and Duan Jupiter Spirit were still cultivating the wind-flying dragon shadow on the square. Their obsession with martial arts is definitely no less than Zhang Ruoken. Zhang Ruoken has only just reached the small pole of the Suanji realm now, and the martial arts realm is still relatively low, so he must spend more time cultivating his true qi, and he can only spend a very small amount of time cultivating martial arts. Huang Yanshan and Duan Jupiter Spirits had already reached the great perfection of the Suanji realm, and they could spend all their time cultivating martial arts. That's their advantage. Back in the martial arts hall, Zhang Ruoken entered the inner space of the space-time spar, subdued a 3 halal qi pill, and began to refine it. Anyway, he didn't lack pills, and he could eat them as jelly beans, as long as he could quickly improve his cultivation. After cultivating in the space-time spar for a day and a half, Zhang Ruoken refined 18 3 halal qi pills in a row, and he could clearly feel that the true qi in the qi lake had increased a lot. The realm of the small pole of the Suanji realm has finally been consolidated. When he walked out of the space-time spar, it happened to be the early morning of the next day, and he found that Huang Yanshan and Duan Jupiter Spirit were still practicing footwork in the square. Zhang Ruoken looked from afar, and only saw 2 beautiful phantoms shuttling in the square, with elegant footwork, the sound of the wind like a dragon's roar, and the speed was extremely fast. He is worthy of being a master of the Xian Bang, and in just 1 day and 1 night of cultivation, he has cultivated the wind-flying dragon shadow to a little bit, as if he is about to get started. The wind-flying dragon shadow they are casting now is just a formality. Only when you reach the godlike can you be considered a beginner. Entry, Xiaocheng, Dacheng, and Transformation Realm, all martial arts are these 4 realms. Among them, the speed of Huang Yanshan is obviously faster than that of Duan Jupiter Ling, and she can reach the entry realm by giving her another day at most. Thanks to the fact that she opened the Wind Divine Martial Mark, the true qi in her body carries the wind attribute, and her physique and true qi are very compatible with the wind-flying dragon shadow, and her cultivation speed is naturally very fast. Wu! Duan Mu Xingling flew to Zhang Ruoken's side, gently wiped the fine sweat on his forehead with his sleeve, and said with a radiant expression, "Senior brother, I discussed it with Sister Chen. We think that the wind-flying dragon shadow is more suitable for cultivation in the windy mountains and wilderness, and in the Dragon Martial Palace, it is all flat ground, and the breeze is not at all, so it is not suitable for cultivating this advanced speed martial art at all." Zhang Ruoken nodded and said, "What are your plans?" Duan Mu Xingling Dao, take a valley in the heavenly Demon Ridge, called Demon Wind Valley. There are hurricanes blowing in the valley all year round, and it is an excellent treasure place for cultivating the wind-flying dragon shadow. Do you want to come with us? Zhang Ruoken asked, "How far is that Demon Wind Valley from the West Courtyard?" Huang Yanchen walked over and said, Demon Wind Valley is only 400 miles away from the west courtyard. At our speed, if we were to travel at full speed, it would only take an hour to get there. I just don't know, can you keep up with us? Zhang Ruogan said with a smile, my cultivation has reached the small pole level, although there is still a gap with the two senior sisters, but it shouldn't be a hindrance for you. How long have you only broken through to the late stage of the Suanji realm? How can you cultivate to reach the small pole of the Suanji realm? Duan Mu Xingling was a little unconvinced, and stared at Zhang Ruogan with puzzled eyes. Huang Yanchen said, he has obtained 10 drops of half-saint true liquid, and with the speed at which he is refining half-saint true liquid, it is not difficult to break through the small pole of the Suanji realm in a short period of time. After all, the half-saint true liquid is a treasure for refining the martial body and increasing the Qi lake, but it is only in the low realm. It has a significant improvement effect on cultivation. As the cultivation increases, the improvement effect of the half-holy true liquid will become weaker. Zhang Ruogan agreed with Huang Yanchen's words. When he was in the late stage of the Suanji realm, he refined 3 drops of the half-saint true liquid before he reached the small pole of the Suanji realm. But even if he refined all the remaining 8 drops of half-saint true liquid now, it would be impossible for him to reach the middle extreme of the Xian extreme realm. Therefore, he planned to use other pills to complete the cultivation of the true Qi in the Qi lake first, and then take 8 drops of the half-saint true liquid to hit the middle pole of the Xian extreme realm in one fell swoop. It's not that the medicinal power of the demi-holy true liquid is not strong enough, but because the main effect of the demi-holy true liquid is not to improve cultivation. 2 senior sisters, I'm going to go back and pack some things first. Zhang Ruogan thought of Xiao He, and was a little worried about leaving it alone in the west courtyard. If there is no one to restrain them, I don't know what kind of mess it will cause. We'll be waiting for you outside the academy gates, you'd better hurry. Huang Yanchen said. Zhang Ruogan returned to number 1 and opened the door of the study, and sure enough, he saw Xiao He sitting on a chair, concentrating on reading. Xiao He, I'm going to cultivate in the Heavenly Demon Ridge, you have to go with me. Zhang Ruogan said. Yes. It just so happens that the Emperor wants to subdue a brute beast mount, if only he could subdue a Suzaku. It's a pity that the cultivation is sealed in the Qinkan Shenmue diagram, and Suzaku can't surrender, so he can only surrender some low-level brute beast mounts. Well. Wait a minute. Xiao He jumped down from the chair, held a book, and followed Zhang Ruogan to the outside of the west courtyard. Zhang Ruogan and Xiao He had just walked out of the west courtyard when the news reached the ears of Prince Huoxing. Are you sure Zhang Ruogan left the west courtyard alone? Prince Huoxing stood up suddenly, and 2 murderous cold lights burst out from his eyes. The student thought for a moment and said, there's also a cat. A cat doesn't have to report it. A cold smile appeared on Prince Huoxing's face, and he said to himself, Zhang Ruogan. Zhang Ruogan. There is a way in heaven that you don't take, and there is no door in hell for you to break into. If you stay in the west courtyard, I can't deal with you. However, if you leave the west courtyard, you are killing yourself. This time, I'm going to kill you with my own hands. The student hesitated slightly, and said, even Feng Zhilan died in the hands of Zhang Ruogan, with the cultivation of His Royal Highness the Prince, I'm afraid he can't kill him. Prince Huoxing glared at him and said, do you think Prince Ben will take action personally? Our Quartet County has stationed 400,000 fierce tiger troops in the Heavenly Demon Mountains, and this prince only needs to send an elite to the military camp to kill Zhang Ruogan, like slaughtering pigs, chickens, and dogs. Not long after Zhang Ruogan left the west courtyard, Prince Huoxing also left the west courtyard and went to the fierce tiger military camp thousands of miles away. 2 senior sisters, let's go now. Zhang Ruogan was on a mountain outside the west courtyard and saw Duan Mu Xingling and Huang Yanchen. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more chapters.